Hi everyone, it's day 38 of the Vendée Globe, and joining me today is Matt Johnston, who in 2016 won the Virtual Vendée Globe edition of the race, possibly making him the only non-French winner in its history, certainly the first Australian, I think. We'll find out a bit more in a minute. He's taking part this year and has been sailing pretty well from what I can see, consistently in the lead group and certainly unafraid to forge his own path. So welcome, Matt.
Hi, Conrad. How are you, mate?
Yeah, very good, thanks. Really nice to catch up with you. It's really interesting to sort of fuse the virtual and the real world. Because you're on your second circumnavigation. Last time round, you finished in 72 days, but you fancied coming back to defend your title.
I think you always have to. You can't not win it and then come back and do it again. You've got to let someone else. They haven't really won it until they're beating the defending champion. So I
Yeah,
had to come
yeah.
back and give them a shot.
So obviously it's pretty late there now, but you just come in off the water. So for the people that are watching this, you know you're not just a virtual sailor; you're a real sailor as well.
Yeah, that's correct, mate. So yeah, lucky enough to get a ride on an MC38 tonight, and it was blowing the crabs out of the mud. So nice and wet and wild ride. So it was good fun.
Good, 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 good. So in terms of the virtual race right now, obviously we're the lead group is quite far ahead of the actual race. Why do you think that is?
I think there's probably a difference in the polar, and there's probably also the comfort factor. I think with the real race, when you're in the Southern Ocean, when you're sitting in your lounge room with the heater going in the northern hemisphere or the air conditioning going in the southern hemisphere, it's nice and easy to go to 53 south, and you see in the 3D, you've got the air temperature being 1 degree. That's not much fun when you're in the real world, but when you're sitting in your lounge room, it's pretty easy. So
Yeah,
there are
yeah,
slight nuances, I guess, with the boats and the speeds with the polars. So I think just being able to hold the weather that little bit longer around Cape of Good Hope sort of kept us in good stead, and we sort of cruised past the real boats.
yeah, yeah. So from the get-go, really, I mean, I was watching your track. You were pretty close to sort of Alex Thompson's route down the Atlantic, and then you flicked over to the west and picked a really nice run down sort of through around the St Helena High. Um, as you say, the Southern Ocean's been quite difficult, and I fancied being closer to the stronger breeze in the south, sailing shorter distance over the last few days. But I've come unstuck because actually above 40 knots, the boats are really suffering. So I think you obviously know a little bit more about than I do about the polars. Why do the boats slow down in 40 knots? Is that just to replicate what reality is?
I think it probably would. I'm not sure how the foils would go in that sort of those sort of wind conditions. It'd be well, they would stabilise the boat, but I think that the polar there has been set. Whether that replicates what actually goes on the boat, be pretty difficult to say. But I think that's probably boat breaking conditions. Sort of 50 degrees south in 40 knots is pretty much boat breaking conditions, I would think, for the foiling type boats. So Jean Leclerc, I'd love to see him in 45 knots, just sending it in the old school boat. So I think the falling boats probably do need to slow down in those sort of winds. I'm not sure that 14 knots is where they would slow to, but yeah, I think it would be boat breaking.
Tell us a little bit about your routine. I mean, 4 years ago, playing for 72 days. Do you try and sort of look at the weather each day? Do you just use the game itself to sort of decide what you're doing, or are you using some outside routing to sort of plan your strategy? How are you sort of planning your day?
So early on in the game, I sort of like to try and stay, I guess, physically prepared. You can't go for 10 weeks waking up every 4 hours in the real world. On a boat where you've got nothing else to do, you probably can, but you become pretty exhausted pretty quickly. So usually morning and night, I have a really good look at the two forecasts, and then decide where to go from there. So I do use an external router, which is Zizo, which most of the guys that play the offshore game know about. But rather than just letting it decide where I should go, I generally take a look at different positions on the map and where I think I should be
Yep.
and try and aim for those. So sometimes I do go out a little bit on my own, but generally the bulk of the group stays together. I guess the tropical low, just as we're approaching the equator, that sort of split the fleet in half, and half went south and half went west, and we sort of all met back in the middle. And we're with the fleet compression that's been going on over the last week and a half, everyone's really close at the moment.
Yeah, it's incredibly close. It's very easy to go from kind of thinking you're sat there nicely in the top 100 to being back out 11,000th again, just within a few hours. It's incredibly close. Was that your experience 4 years ago as well?
Yeah, sort of 4 years ago, it was very, very tight. I think all the way to New Zealand, there was probably the same sort of number of boats. There was a frontal system that came through on an ice skate. It was either between New Zealand and Nemo Point or just under New Zealand. I can't remember specifically, but that sort of split the fleet, and it was guys that were no more than 15 or 20 miles off the pace ended up being a day behind. And it was sort of when Alex Thompson and Armel Leclerc were close together in the Southern Ocean as well. Armel, I believe, went a little south of Alex, and they split, and all of a sudden it was a 24-hour gap, and the same thing happened.
Let's have a quick look at the tracker and the actual fleet. So this was the situation a few hours ago. Still pretty tricky with these extended high pressure systems in the south that seem to aligning themselves, around the ice limits, which means the boats are kind of very stop-starty rather than, perhaps in previous editions where they've been able to, get on the Southern Ocean train and just ride the westerlies for long periods. What do you think strategically is going on? Quite tricky race.
It's a very tricky race. I think with the ice gate being so far north, it's fairly strange weather conditions in Australia at the moment as well. We've sort of got, tropical cyclones building in the north, and the high pressure systems are quite low as well. So it's sort of compressing the westerlies further south. So it's actually quite hard for the real boats to probably jump on the train, as you call it, and get east. Sorry. So ride the westerlies.
You can imagine if they were all sort of 500-600 miles further south, it'd be much more consistent than where they are now. Current forecasts on windy with the track. So we'll just run through over the next few days and just give us your thoughts on what we might expect.
Oh, it is definitely the high pressure that's sort of off the southern tip of New Zealand, there between Tasmania and New Zealand, is sort of really compressing the lows down. So it's quite a tricky section of the race there. I suppose with the virtual race, we're sort of been blessed a little bit that
in that section,
although has split into sort of 60,000 plus competitor groups, which are in the same situation. But the compression of the lows down further to Antarctica is really making it hard for them to stay off the ice skate one and sort of prick the right line. So it's looking like a tricky sort of race.
Any thoughts on doing the race in the real world?
I would absolutely love to do it. So I guess the funding in Australia would be pretty difficult to do it, but I'd love to do it. So I haven't overly done much offshore racing. I was due to do the Hobart 2 years ago, but the boat was damaged on the way around there, so I didn't actually get a start. So even just a Hobart would be a dream come true. But to do a Vende, could I cope with the isolation for 72 days? I'm not sure. You'd be the expert in that. It's probably but it'd be a test of the human spirit. It'd be something that you'd never forget.
We need some more Australian and Kiwi sailors in the race. It'd be great to see.
So we had Conrad last year, who unfortunately broke his mast, but I'd love to do it. So I'll have to get stuck into the Sydney Mafia guys to find me a backer and put me in the race.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Matt, brilliant to catch up. Thanks so much for your time. I'll let you get your head down, and I'm sure you've probably just jumped a couple of thousand boats overnight on the virtual regatta, so you're looking quite sweet back up there in the north again. Are you back in the lead? You must be not far off.
I think probably about 500-ish at the moment, but yeah, probably less than 5 miles behind the leading guys in this group. So yeah, just play it by ear. I was in the same position last time around, so I was sort of about 5 miles behind at Cape Horn, and then that's when the race really starts, and you sort of get the sleepless nights, and every 4 hours was checking the boat and making sure everything's okay and going the right way. And yeah, it just went from there. So Christmas Day onwards, that's when the fun starts.
Great, great. All right. Well, hopefully I'll be somewhere near you by the by Cape Horn, and we'll find a route back out of this stormy conditions that we've got now. And
Or we could just park at Rio and just have a party.
yeah,
Go
that's
to
right.
Rio for New Year.
In 2004, I had keel problems on the way back up the Atlantic, and very nearly ended up in South America to fix my boat, but cobbled something together to continue. But of course, Nick Maloney was just ahead of me, Australian Nick Maloney, and he lost his keel on Scandia going up that route. So, but now I know that we slow down in over 40 knots. I'll be a bit more careful about routing through some of these storms. I thought,
Yeah. Well, I think I'm sort of heading that way as well. There's 36 knots, but yeah, you need to sort of dip south to get to that ice gate now, and yeah, try and ride the southerly flow, which is weird in the Southern Ocean, but yeah, it doesn't happen very often. But
super job, Matt. Thanks so much for joining us, and hopefully we'll catch up with you again, maybe when we're back in the Atlantic and it's all a bit tactical.
yeah, not a problem, Conrad. Too easy, mate.
So that was Matt Johnston, a virtual extraordinary sailor, doing his second circumnavigation, and certainly well up there with the lead group again. Look forward to joining you on Friday, where we're catching up with Bao Becking from the Volvo Ocean Race, and a chance to speak to him about the Vendée and of course the newer Mocha class that's going to be doing the Ocean Race in 2023. So we'll see you then. Cheers. Bye bye.